Okay, let's revisit the 2022 draft. Similar to the 2021 one that I did for this, this is not a regrading, this is not a redrafting, this is a seeing how a bunch of guys are doing so far in their careers. And like that one, I'm going in order, so it's going to take a minute to get to like Jalen Williams and Walker Kessler, but trust me, a lot of nice things will be said about them. And so we start with Paolo up top, and with Paolo, the second he walked into the NBA, man, the dude could just get to the free throw line. The combination of size, handle, athleticism, strength, willingness to accept contact around the basket, like that to me remains the most exciting part of his game. For the season, he's like 12th in free throws per game. I think his last one against the Wizards, he had like 14 free throws or whatever it was. Now, of course, there's other parts of his game, like what's happening when he's not getting to the line. And he can still have finishes where he's busting out like a spin move in the middle of a drive, or he's just overpowering somebody at the rim, but there's not a foul call. Like, sure, he doesn't make every single layup or dunk, and I think a lot of that is just he's a rookie who is taking on a lot of responsibility on offense, and also he is driving into some pretty packed paints as teams try to slow him down around there. And so while he has already shown signs of like really good footwork and spin moves and pump fakes and all that, I think he'll keep getting better at that stuff, and he should just be one of the best scorers in the league if we fast forward a few years. As far as the shooting, so he did have that stretch in February where for basically 11 games he made like one three-pointer. So if you want to be a super cynic on his outside shooting, like, okay, you can do it. Me personally, between his free throw percentage, which is in the 70s, his three-point percentage in college, which was like mid-30s, I don't find myself being that concerned about his outside shot in the sense of I think he's going to get to being okay enough given how dominant he projects to being as an inside scorer. As for the mid-range, I will say he does tend to enjoy his like face-up mid-rangers or long twos, which I'm not the biggest fan of. Like, it's a normal rookie thing to take those shots. I would hope in time he just kind of tunes them out a little bit or just gets really good at them, one of the two. But still, I think you should be very excited about Paolo if you're a Magic fan, and the thing of him and Franz and Wendell and Fultz and the whole thing, I still feel okay about Suggs because of his defense and all that. The Magic are definitely going in the right direction. Number 2, we're going to go to Jabari, because, of course, Chet did not play this season. So I think enough has been said about the Rockets' offense, and yes, we all agree. If Jabari was in a different place where perhaps there were more off-ball sets run for him and everything, it would be cool. They have been dabbling in some, like, him moving off of, like, Şengün handoff actions a little bit, getting into his pull-up jumper recently. But anyway, for Jabari, it's a lot of catch and shoots. It's a lot of, like, 1 or 2 dribble pull-ups, and the shooting, while there have definitely been stretches and it's been better recently, and while I definitely think he's going to be able to make open shots consistently and all that, and I mean, you do have these moments where he makes these like fadeaways over guys or these pull-ups over guys at the free throw line when they're all over him and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. Overall, yes, the three-point shooting, the overall shot making has not been where you would have imagined it being if you were just super duper high on Jabari this early into his career. What do I do with that? I don't know, because I like his shooting form. I like his confidence. I mean, he goes up with it pretty quick. He does not hesitate. His free throws are at 78. There's all the evidence of the shots he made in college. Like, I think Jabari will prove to be a much better shooter than what his percentages say for this season. So there's that. As far as the other parts of his game, defensively, I'm pretty intrigued with his team defense. I really like just how it looks when he's like playing off of somebody on the corner and he's trying to anticipate like, okay, when do I help and when can I close out to my guy? I think he's good at just general communication things. Like, you'll see him pointing at guys on where to go and all that. I think he'll just pick up on something kind of fast where it's like, oh, I got to close out to this guy in transition or whatever. So that stuff is good. The rebounding is good. I like when he's attacking the offensive glass. I love when he's just involved in random cut plays. So yeah, next we get to Keegan Murray. So Keegan's just been one of the best shooters in the league this season. I think there's been like 15 guys or something in the league this year who have shot over 40% from 3 on at least 6 attempts a game. I wanted to check how many rookies have done that, but there's not really a way to do it, at least as far as I know. But the other thing with Keegan is I think he's already showing some signs of being able to score more than, 13, 14 points a game or whatever. So he did have a stretch recently where he attempted like over 30 threes in 3 games, which, I mean, that's something I always go to. Like, when you prove you're a good shooter, okay, now it's how many more attempts can you handle, and he calmed down a little bit from that since then. But the other thing is, like, he's having more moments of like pump fake and then attack off the catch as opposed to always going for the 3 or get a handoff action from Sabonis and then take the straight line drive dribble to the rim and try to make something happen. I remember one of my super early takes with the guy was I was really impressed with how he relocated off the ball, not in like a set play, but just kind of reading the situation. I also feel like his rebounding might be a tad underrated, but it was a great pick for the Kings, no doubt. Now we get to Jaden Ivy. So I think we all know by now that the expectation was it's Ivy and Cade, and Ivy can play off of Cade, and Ivy had to take on more offensive responsibility after Cade went down, that whole thing. It's definitely been an adventure of a season. I feel like I've used that word many times with Ivy when talking about him. But lately it's been pretty damn good his last few games. I mean, his recent one against the Bucks, for whatever reason, there was one play that stood out for me when the play just kind of dies, and he just takes Chris Middleton into an ISO, and just a couple dribble moves, draws a foul on him, gets to the free throw line. Like something really basic, but that's pretty much the hope with Jaden Ivy. I mean, he had like 12 free throw attempts in that game. Recently against the Raptors, there was a couple plays, one where he's going at Jakob Poeltl in a drop off of a Wiseman screen, and just in basically half a second, he goes from the three-point line to the basket, makes a layup, and it's like, that was great. You know, he had a couple of pull-up jumpers when Siakam was giving him the space. I think he's gotten better at like putting a defender on his back, coming around a screen. Like all the signs are there for Ivy. It's just not going to happen every single game because sometimes, like his last one against the Magic, those pull-up jumpers he was making against the Raptors, they just didn't drop as much. I'm just envisioning Cade being able to kick it out to Ivy and then him attacking off the catch and then making something happen at the rim or keeping the whole thing moving. Like that to me is the most exciting idea of this. But Ivy getting these reps now, working across screens, having defenses focus on him more, I think it's good for him. But it's still a bit of a process. I mean, he'll pull off some great passes, like skip past somebody in the corner, lob to Durham or whatever, and also the turnovers do get up there a bit sometimes. Now for Benedict Mathurin. So similar to Paolo, I think the foul drawing and the inside scoring and just the straight line drive ferocity, if you will, is the most intriguing thing with Mathurin. And like stagger screens or down screens from the corner, he can make something happen in transition. I think it's also fair to say that he's not exactly a big assist guy right now. And to be clear, I'm not saying he's a selfish player, because from all accounts, he is 100% okay with the way the Pacers' shot hierarchy is between him and Buddy Hield, Miles Turner, Halliburton, because of course Halliburton's running the show and all that. But at the same time, I think when Mathurin's got the opportunity, he's got the ball in his hand, he's going downhill, he's thinking shoot first, and he's good at it, so that's okay. As far as the outside shooting, opened up the season, it looked like he was going to be an amazing shooter, and now he's at like 32% from outside, and I'm just kind of like, yeah, I see the percentage, but similar to Jabari, I still project Mathurin to be an awesome shooter because, I mean, similar to Jabari as well, I like the form, I like his confidence. He's shooting 83% on 6 free throws a game. That's a lot of free throws to shoot that good of a percentage on, you know? His college stuff is good. Like, there's a lot of evidence to say he's a better shooter than what he has been able to show this season. So there you go. Now we get to Shaden Sharpe, who is on a hell of a run right now, man. Dude's dropping 20 and 30-point games. Sharpe is very athletic, we all know this, but recently he's looked really comfortable working around screens. You know, his last one against the T-Wolves where, you know, late he had a couple of layups like around Gobert off of screens. I think there was one where he went at Towns at an ISO late. He's also been getting his fair share of difficult shot attempts up, which was something that I noticed in like the preseason where it did leave me a little nervous. I was like, ooh, I don't know. You know, these are tough shots he's taking. At this point, man, he's making enough difficult like pull-ups and step backs and whatever to where I'm just like, you know what, man, he's just got it like this. Like, I don't know what the exact percentage is on these shots, but it's good enough to where I'm like, all right, man, go for it. And, you know, throughout most of this season, he was lower in the rotation, which I think was fine. I don't think you have to throw everything at a 19-year-old, especially when you got like Dame and Simons and all that, but it's going well now for him. And not all these tough jumpers are from 3. Like, some of them are from mid-range and all that, by the way. Anyway, I will admit, I wish I was talking about defense a little bit more. We will talk about defense with the next couple guys, and eventually Walker Kessler and Jalen Williams will be here and stuff. But next we go to Dyson Daniels. I think Dyson has all the potential to be one of my favorite players in the league with the defense, the size, and the passing. But the questions are going to be, can he get downhill and score enough at the basket? And also, where does the three-pointer get to? Now we go to Jeremy Sohan. Sohan's good, man. You know, first off was the adjustment to his free throws. He's way better when they're one-handed. It makes sense. The elbows tucked in, all that good stuff. Kudos to him for that one. Defensively, he was projected to be just like this switchable guy, and yeah, he definitely, I mean, his effort is there, fighting around screens, closeouts. You know, I watched one of the games where they were facing the Magic, and he's like on Paolo, but then he's also on Fultz, and then he's on Cole Anthony. And with all of it, I was just like, yeah, that's fine. Go for it. And then on offense, you know, he has dabbled into some like bully ball stuff where he's using his size. He's a big dude. He's like 225, 230 or whatever. And he's a good enough ball handler to where like he'll put his shoulder into somebody and make something happen at the rim. He sets a lot of screens on ball, off ball to where he's got like cut opportunities off of that. He's good enough to attack off the catch. And in transition, he can finish an alley-oop. An interesting thing with his passing is while his assist numbers are not huge, I feel like he's got the mind for someone who can average a good amount of assists on the wing where he's always just looking. He's looking for a cutter. He's trying to get a handoff action going. And, the Spurs do give him some opportunities as the lead ball handler. And I think that's the right thing to do when he's in his rookie season and you're not expected to win a bunch of games. It's like let him have like a little 3-4 minute stretch where he's bringing the ball up court and we just see what happens. As for the shooting, because of course we can't ignore that, I mean, yes, sometimes he kind of hesitates on his shot, or sometimes he'll choose to keep it moving as opposed to taking the opportunity for a three, or sometimes he'll take a couple dribbles in and take like a long two where you can tell he's not super confident in the three. Other times he takes the three with no hesitation. I think his form sometimes looks really like almost like a one fluid motion sort of thing, and other times it looks like a Ricky Rubio thing where it's like his lower body and his upper body are not totally lined up, so it's going to be a process there. Next, with apologies to Johnny Davis and Ousmane Dieng, I would like to talk about Jalen Williams. His shot creation, the way he lulls defenders to sleep with his size up moves with his crossover, the way it seems like he can recognize if a defender's like slightly off balance, then he'll just attack off of that. His physicality to where he's like a bigger dude, so once he's got the angle on you, that's enough for him to finish something at the rim. His defense, where he's like pretty awesome as like a vertical contest help defender, even though he's not like 6'10" or whatever. He's 6'5", but he's got a really long wingspan. I love how through a combo of that size and his footwork and keeping the dribble alive, sometimes he'll have plays where like it seems like he's kind of stuck at the free throw line and then he just kind of finds a way to get to the rim basically. He's an awesome cutter. How the hell does Sam Presti keep on doing this, man? He's a good transition passer. He's so freaking good already. I'm going to call an audible and go out of order just for a second here. We're going to talk about Walker Kessler now, and then it'll be Jalen Durham right after. I gave him role player all-star. I think very highly of his long-term projections as a rim protector, and I'm assuming he's going to be a perennial all-defense candidate. And I think there's a very real shot that he could have at least one defensive player of the year on his resume by the time he's done. The interesting thing with the Jazz, as I've watched some of their recent games with him, they've been trying some different things with him defensively. So in the Celtics game, they were actually having him like double Tatum sometimes. Against the Spurs, he was guarding Trey Jones. He was also guarding Romeo Langford for some of that game. Against the Nets, he was like playing high up on screens and not always in drop. And I think it's just an interesting sort of thing to try and see what works. And, within that, like they run lineups with him, Kelly Olynyk, and Lauri Markkanen. So Will Hardy's willing to get kind of weird with the team. And look, of course, Walker in a drop, he's so composed. I mean, I've already talked enough about how he uses both of his hands to where like one of his arms, usually his right arm, kind of freaks you out with the left arm being the one that gets the block a lot of the time. But he's just good at like making sure the guard is like kind of uncomfortable and they're thinking about, do I go to the floater or whatever? And then he's like keeping his guy contained so he's not open on the back line or whatever. Like Kessler, he's really good. And then on offense, funny enough, he and Jalen Durham have the same offensive rebound percentage, and both of them are already towards the top of the league in that. So that's cool, because offensive rebounds are cool. They'll do some stuff where like he'll screen for Olynyk, which kind of works because Olynyk's a good enough ball handler to where he can then make something happen off of that, so it'll be like Kessler cutting to the basket or whatever. And as I've said before, like he's not some slow center that just stands in front of the rim. Like he can run in transition, he can catch an alley-oop. I've seen him occasionally cut from like the baseline in order to make a pass easier for his guard or whatever. He's really good. If there is one criticism we can throw at Kessler, it's that we now have a decent sample size to suggest he ain't that good at the free throw line. He shot 57% from there in college. He's at 52% from there in the NBA, but he's still already a big positive. Okay, now Jalen Durham. So him and Wiseman have been basically splitting minutes at center, with Wiseman starting and playing slightly more minutes than Durham, which I think Pistons fans for the most part have not enjoyed, because they're all in on Durham getting minutes. As I've said before with Durham, I think the finishing is really intriguing. Not just the dunks. I mean, those are good too, no doubt. But it's also the non-dunk finishing, whether it's like hook shots or just getting an offensive rebound and then just whatever weird angle he needs to do with either arm to get the shot over the defender or just like some sort of pump fake and do a reverse thing. Like that's the stuff that has me excited. And like I just said, his offensive rebounding is really good. As far as the defense, so in the stuff that I've seen from him, I've actually seen him playing a little higher up on screens as opposed to being in a drop. I've even seen the occasional switching here and there, and he seems pretty okay. Like, I find myself walking away from that being like, he'll be fine on defense with potential to be like decently above average because of his verticality at the rim. And he's also been mobile enough to like close out on guys if he has to as well. So I'm pretty positive on Jalen Durham. Now we're going to get to one of the more underrated rookies to me on the Jazz, Ochai Agbaji. Not going to go super long here. I'll just say I like his energy on defense. He does this like step through move when trying to get around screens that work sometimes. His head is on a swivel a lot defensively. On offense, his three ball is pretty up and down right now, but I think he's a player to pay attention to. We got some more defense coming up, this one being Mark Williams. So, in the games that I've seen, I would say that Mark has been in like a slight drop on defense where he's maybe like a foot or maybe a foot and a half behind the level of the screen. And he's looked good, which makes sense because all the projections coming into this thing were, yeah, he's going to be able to be a man in the middle defensively for you. Although I do recall a couple of possessions in one of the Mavericks games where he would like switch onto Luka and they would immediately double team, so take that for what you will. Unless my memory is just going out. I've been doing this video for a while, so maybe I'm just losing my mind. But I'm pretty sure all the advanced stats, lineup numbers have all been like, yeah, once Mark Williams started getting real minutes, the Hornets' defense got way better, and it's not surprising to look at it. Next, AJ Griffin on the Hawks. He seems like a pretty balanced offensive player. There you go, man. I like his shooting form. It's just he's a wing on the Hawks, so it's kind of like go stand in the corner when Trey and DeJounte run their pick and rolls, you know what I'm saying? Tari Eason with the Rockets. Tari plays very hard, for better and for worse. Sometimes he'll have a million offensive rebounds. Sometimes he will get in passing lanes and, be going the other way for a transition dunk. Sometimes he'll drive into like 4 defenders and kind of throw something off the backboard, and it was like, well, that was an attempt. His 3-ball being okay right now is definitely intriguing. Overall, I'm positive on Tari Eason. Apologies to Dalen Terry and Jake LaRavia. We're going to go to Malachi Branham on the Spurs. He gets buckets, man. They're allowing him to work off of screens. He had a million pull-up mid-rangers against the Celtics. He's always looking to cut, and his just, whenever he can get downhill, whether it's like off a corner action or whatever, it just looks good. Next up, Christian Brown with the Nuggets. His last name looks like Braun, but it's pronounced Brown. Kind of a dream pick if you're Denver, because you got him with the 21st pick. He's already really good defensively. Like, he keeps his chest up, he moves well laterally. He can dunk on somebody's head, he can cut, he's a good enough ball handler to keep the play moving. The shooting will, I guess, be one of the questions with him. I mean, so far it's been fine, it's just not in a lot of attempts. We got 2 more guys left. First one here is Jayden Hardy. The next will be Andrew Nemhard. Hardy, he did have some 20-point games with the Mavericks, and his step back was pretty encouraging, where it's not the most exaggerated step back. Like, it's kind of subtle, but he's able to create enough space off of it. Besides the step back, I think his catch and shoots are pretty promising, and also just working off the catch and working in transition and all that. Now we got Andrew Nemhard on the Pacers, who I think, this is going to sound kind of basic, but, well, I'm going to be honest, I'm kind of out of brain power by the end of this whole thing. Nemhard seems like a solid all-around player. I don't know if he can be like a primary ball handler, maybe off the bench, just as like a solid fundamentals guy. They've played him with Halliburton and Mathurin some, so I guess that's Carlisle sort of signaling, yeah, we want this guy next to like Halliburton who can still run the offense like that. He seems fine. Shout out to Christian Koloko and David Roddy, and that'll do it.